Hi, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Marshall. Welcome to Tumble, the show where we explore stories of science discovery.
Today, we're talking about how to study a flower.
Ooh, that sounds really nice. Like just looking at flowers all day? What kind of flower?
It's called the yellow monkeyflower. It's pretty, but if you look closer, it will make you rethink everything you think you know about what makes a species a species.
Oh, all right. Well, let's take a closer look.
Today, we're talking to biologist David Lowry, who you might remember from a previous episode.
Oh, he was on the seed treasure map.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes. So I was excited to talk to David about another plant mystery he's spent decades trying to solve.
What we do is try to figure out how plants live in different environments. So how they live on top of mountains and down by the ocean, and what makes them able to live in those different places.
Huh. I mean, I guess I know that plants can live in different places because I've been to different places, and I have noticed that there are usually plants in those places.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple observation.
I'm very keen.
Yeah, I think all of our listeners have probably had that experience.
Yeah, have you been in a place, and did you see a plant there?
You probably did. But as you'll hear, a simple question about a simple observation can lead to science that will make you question how we define all of life on Earth.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
All right, so the story begins humbly enough when David was a kid and forced to garden against his will by his parents.
Yeah, I can relate to that experience.
My parents like to grow lots of different plants in their yard. And so as a kid, they made me work with them. And I didn't really like it at the time.
So wait, what were like all the kinds of things he had to do with them? Like water them, sing to them, ask them survey questions?
One of the things he had to do was pick fruit.
They just had so many different fruit trees on their property. And it was always like, go out and pick a persimmon off this tree or an apple off that tree or an Asian pear off this tree.
Sounds like a hard life.
Eating fruit from trees, I know.
Yeah.
But later, when David was studying to become a scientist in college, he ended up in a couple of plant biology classes. And that's when he started seeing plants in a different way and asking some questions about them.
So we have all these different plants with different shapes to them. How did they become these different shapes and why?
Like, why do some plants grow high, like sunflowers, and why are others low to the ground and spread out, like grass and other weeds?
Yeah, simple questions. And David learned pretty early on that the answer has something to do with what's called an adaptation.
So an adaptation is something that an organism possesses, usually like a trait the organism has, that allows it to survive better than other organisms.
I mean, I've heard of adaptations. It's something that organisms evolve because it gives them an advantage in different environments.
Exactly. So at the time that David was a student, scientists were trying to figure out what's behind those adaptations. They knew why they happened, but they wanted to know how.
This was like the hottest topic at that point in time.
Ooh, a hot plant topic.
What's better than that? David decided on his approach to answering the question. He chose to study a plant called the yellow monkeyflower.
Why is it called a yellow monkeyflower? Is it because monkeys plant it or something?
So I think the idea is that they look kind of like a laughing monkey. Some people can see the monkey better than other people.
I'm going to show you a photo. Can you describe what you're seeing?
I'm seeing, it's a gorgeous flower. It's yellow and it's got like red bits, like red spots on it. It's really pretty, but I don't know why anyone thinks that's a monkey.
Me either, honestly.
So why did David decide to study the yellow monkeyflower? Was it just his favorite color and his favorite flower?
David does love the yellow monkeyflower.
The pink one, not so much.
Yellow. But specifically, he chose it because it's an ideal plant to study.
By working on one plant species at a time, it's much easier to go in depth and figure out all the different ways that plant has adapted to particular environments.
The yellow monkeyflower is special because it's adapted to live in a lot of different environments.
So it lives along the coastlines in California and Oregon, and all the way to the top of the tallest mountains in the western United States.
Okay, so it can live down near the sea and also in high elevations. That's a lot of different places.
Yeah, and it's also adapted to places that few other plants can live in.
It's adapted to live on the hot springs in Yellowstone National Park, as well as on copper mine tailings, which are highly toxic to most other plants.
So for yellow monkeyflowers, when like everyone else is like, this environment's gotten really toxic, they're like, good.
I'm dealing with it.
It's been able to evolve these adaptations, and we just want to know why and how. And because it has a short lifespan, we can actually do laboratory experiments with it and field experiments.
So David came up with a plan for a series of experiments with the yellow monkeyflower. He started small by comparing just 2 types of monkeyflowers that look very different from each other.
The real question that I wanted to know was, are these plants that grow along the Pacific Ocean that we see out there that are big, and then the plants that grow just inland from there that are much smaller, are they actually the same species?
Okay, so you've got like a big monkeyflower and a little monkeyflower. And does David think that they might not be the same species of monkeyflower?
Well, the question of whether these 2 plants are the same species has puzzled plant scientists for a long time. They look really different. I'm going to show you a quick time-lapse video of them growing side by side.
Oh no, those are not the same plant. Just, sorry. No doubt, different plants.
Yeah, one's stretching up real tall and the other is just kind of lifting up its bushy leaves.
Yeah, okay, case closed. Done.
Not so fast, Marshall. Some scientists have called them different varieties, which are like different groups or populations within the same species. But other scientists called them separate species. David wanted to settle the question.
Well, how'd he do that?
He started with a road trip, and we'll find out why right after this quick break. We're back. So when we left off, David was setting off on a road trip with 2 missions. Find out why the coastal and inland monkeyflower look so different from each other, and discover if they're still the same species.
In other words, are the small and the big plants the same?
Exactly. So David's first task was to go out and actually collect these plants in the wild so he could do experiments with them. He took his own car and found a friend who would go on a monkeyflower road trip up the Pacific coast.
Yeah, so we had a very sophisticated method of looking for plants, which included driving up the coast 50 miles from our last collection, driving inland, and looking for yellow things.
Wait, so he's just looking for yellow things? Like, what if he finds, like, a yield sign or something? Does he take a sample of it?
The yellow had to be attached to a plant. I think that narrowed things down a little bit.
Sure.
And when we saw yellow things on the side of the road, we got out to look at them and see if they were our species or not. And if they were, we collected them and drove immediately back to the coast and collected a coastal one to match up with the inland one.
Oh, I mean, I thought he'd be using like AI or something.
Nope, it's just like playing I Spy for the exact same thing every single time.
I spy something yellow.
It's a real skill to be able to find these things while driving 55 miles an hour down a road.
So I can't imagine that these are the skills that David thought he was going to need to become a scientist.
I don't think so. But this way, he collected all of his monkeyflowers, and then he took them back to his greenhouse, and he grew them from seed.
Yeah, so we took a bunch of the coastal ones, and we planted them, and a bunch of the inland ones.
He waited to see what they would look like now that they were growing together in the same environment.
And when they came up in the greenhouse, the coastal ones were much bigger than the inland ones.
Huh, so the coastal ones were big when they were actually living on the coast too.
Yeah, and the inland plants were also the same as they had been.
And the inland ones flowered much earlier than the coastal ones. And there was a lot of differences between them.
Huh, so that's the same way they were in the wild, which, I mean, I guess that's what I might expect. But what did David learn from that?
With that, we confirmed that these things were definitely very different organisms, even though they might be the same species.
Okay, well, so they're very different, but I guess the question of are these the same species hadn't really been answered.
No, not yet. And to get at that question, David had to ask even more questions.
Then the question was, how did this happen? And why are these things different from each other?
He wanted to see what was actually driving or creating their adaptations.
And so over time, through a series of experiments, we were able to figure out that the coastal ones were big and flowered late because they had the availability of water year-round.
Right on the coast, the weather stays cool and wet during the summertime because there's a lot of fog there. But just miles inland, it gets super hot and dry in the summer. The monkeyflowers don't have water and they dry out.
And their adaptation to deal with that drying out is to flower early and produce seeds early before the drought kills them off.
So the inland plants don't have the time that they need to get big. They have to grow from the start every year because they just don't get enough water.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the coastal plants live for many years because they have a constant supply of water.
And so that big difference drives these differences in how these plants look.
Okay, well, so we found out that the two types of monkeyflowers are adapted based on the amount of water that they get, but why can't we just call them separate species? It sounds like they're doing their own thing and they don't really have anything to do with each other.
Oh, if it was only that easy.
I guess that means it's not.
Nope. Based on his research, David believes that they're still the same species. But other scientists take the same research and disagree with him.
How is that possible? They're looking at the same stuff.
Well, scientists don't agree on the definition of species in general.
Well, I think kids would be surprised that scientists still argue with each other over what makes a species.
What? I thought we already had this one figured out because you just open up a book and it says, here's what a species is. Zebras different from plants. Done.
So, yeah, that is true. You can find a definition if you look it up, especially in a biology textbook. It's called the biological concept of species.
Now, there was folks like Ernst Mayr who came up with the biological concept of species, which is define species by whether things can mate with each other or not.
Okay, I mean, so that's what I thought. Basically, can they make babies and keep continuing the species?
Exactly. And David's two types of monkeyflowers do meet the biological definition for being the same species. But scientists who work in museums don't find that definition very useful.
You can't take your organisms that are no longer alive and see if they can cross with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. So we'll never know for sure if lions and T-Rexes are different species.
No, they just define species based on if they look different.
How they look. Exactly. And then there was all kinds of other concepts as well.
Other concepts? How many other ways are there to define a species?
Too many. It's very confusing. People can just write definitions if they have support for them.
My definition is species that do wear socks and species that don't. That's the only division that matters. Can you wear socks?
So it's just us.
No, you can put socks on dogs.
That's true. Us and dogs, same. But going back to the monkeyflowers, even though David had narrowed all of plant life down to study just one plant, he found that he opened up a huge can of worms about how we understand and categorize all of life on the planet.
So studying these monkeyflowers has made it glaringly clear to me that we don't have a great idea of exactly what a species is or whether we can actually name things as separate species.
Wait, so this keeps getting deeper. So now maybe David's saying that we can't even name things as separate species?
Well, not exactly. we can definitely say that humans are different from elephants.
We're clearly separate species, right? But it gets very muddy when we talk about things that are closely related to each other.
Things get blurry when they're as closely related as two types of monkeyflowers that live in different places and don't breed in the wild.
Okay, so spiders and grasshoppers still different.
Yes. We still have some ground to call things different species. But the issue is not just how we humans decide to give things names. The concept of species helps us think about how biodiversity, or the variety of life that we have on the planet, came about in the first place.
And why aren't all the organisms just the same species? And why can't they all mix with each other? How do we get all this biodiversity, and why does it stick around?
Oh man, so we somehow went from David's road trip finding yellow flowers growing in different places to why are there even different types of life?
Why isn't everything the same?
Why aren't we all the same?
Why aren't we all green plants? That's it.
Yes. Just plants. Okay, so we know that monkeyflowers grow in lots of different environments and that those environments cause them to change or adapt. And those adaptations make them look very different.
That's right. And the big question is, are they so different that they're starting to become a new species?
So, but if we know that it's really hard to figure out what a species is, what's the point?
The point is that when things are hard to figure out, scientists keep going, even if the question feels impossible.
What kids should know is that lots of scientists, and the best scientists out there, are struggling with things that they have no idea how to deal with. And that is where science is at. It's at that edge of the unknown.
In the next episode, we'll follow David into the unknown as he looks inside the monkeyflower to discover a hidden mystery within its DNA that could reveal one of the biggest secrets of evolution.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize we're doing a two-parter here?
It's true, so tune in next time.
Oh, can I do the announcer voice?
Yes, do it.
Next time on Tumble, we uncover a mystery deep within monkeyflower DNA and unlock the secrets of evolution. That was pretty dramatic. Now that you've learned how biologists collect plants to study adaptations, try collecting your own plants.
In your own yard, collect examples of at least 3 different plants. If you don't have a yard, take photos of plants you see around your neighborhood. Then compare them. How are they different? How are they similar?
Come up with some ideas of how they're adapted to their environment.
And if you want to take it even further, try designing your own experiment to test how seeds grow in different environments. Thanks today to Dr. David Bryant Lowry, Professor of Plant Biology at Michigan State University.
Hear more from our interview with David on the special bonus interview episode that's available to Patreon members who pledge at the $1 level or higher at patreon.com/tumblepodcast.
We'll also have more free resources on our website where you can see pictures and videos of monkeyflowers that we described in this episode. That's on the blog at sciencepodcastforkids.com.
This material is based upon work supported by the National Science Foundation under grant number 2153100, Imagine the Genetic, Developmental, and Physiological Mechanisms of Plant Local Adaptation to Oceanic Salt Spray.
Sarah Robertson-Lentz is our editor and designed the episode art. Elliot Hajjaj is our production assistant. Gary Calhoun-James is our engineer and mixer. I'm Lindsay Patterson, and I wrote this episode.
And I'm Marshall Escamilla, and I made all the music and sound design for this episode. Tumble is a production of Tumble Media. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more stories of science discovery.